Hi guys, welcome to our daily recap. It is Monday, January 25th, 2021. And in this video, I'd like to just go over the stocks that we covered in our Sunday stock update, as well as just talk about some personal trades and some setups that I'd like to see and use for my personal trading, and also just give some general tips on trading. One of the things that you may have noticed was over the weekend, we had this big stimulus talk with Biden's $1.9 trillion package, and the market obviously reacted. And one of the things that happens a lot of times is you'll see a lot of gap up plays where stocks essentially, pre-market, they start gapping up higher and they trade higher. And one of the setups that I've noticed, we've had this sort of GameStop, redefine kind of the market and what it's doing, but it's been sort of a trend where, a lot of technical sort of traders will look for what they call a gap fill, not necessarily right at open, but close to open. And what I'm starting to see as a trend is it's this idea that if a stock closes, let's say, for example, at $5 and it's trading around $10, there's this gap between the 5 where it closed and the 10 where it opens. And so a lot of technical traders are looking for that sort of fill to happen at or near open. And the trend that I've noticed, and it happened with Apple, it happened pretty much with most stocks today, is that they're actually gapping even up higher, right? So it's a gap and go, they're going up higher before they really fill in that gap. And you may have noticed if you were trading today, and if you do pay attention to what we call the level 2 and the time and sales, that it felt very heavy. And we had what we called a flash crash, where basically for a moment the market felt extremely heavy and stocks were essentially tanking. And so, just to kind of kick things off with sort of Apple, one of the things that I was looking for in the pre-market was just certain levels. And I mentioned in our video from Sunday night that I wouldn't be surprised if I saw 141, 142 as a high. And so that's exactly what we got here. We got up to 143 and I started shorting. But you may notice on let's go to the 1 minute chart here. You may notice that as soon as we opened, right, is that we actually had traded just a bit. Let me just zoom in here. We had basically came in here and we actually gapped up even higher, up to close to 145. And so this sort of idea that it's going to fill in the gap, you can see is, when the market felt heavy and we had this sort of market crash, right? We traded from all the way from 145 down to 136. This was sort of that fill that I was talking about. So here we are on the 15-minute chart where we closed on Friday. Here's where we opened. Here's where essentially we raced up in the morning play where, the bulls take charge. And then we sort of had this fill. And then, of course, like I said, because of this crash, you can see this massive volume that came in about an hour and a half into open. Okay, so we had this massive drop all the way down to 136 on Apple. And so, shorting pre-market, that's where you can really get burned, because had I not covered my short in pre-market, which, I could tell that the 143 was providing strong resistance, and of course it's all-time highs, had I not covered, you get blown away. So a lot of shorts in this market are losing a lot of money, and they're losing money because they're not adapting to trends. And if you're someone, either you follow this channel or you've stumbled on this channel, just know that we're a 100% free content channel. We're here to support and help each other. And if you notice something and you want to share it with the community, feel free to add a comment to this video. But one of the things that has been clear is that shorts are getting burned, and they're getting burned because they're trying to find the top. They're trying to find the top of a stock. They're trying again, they're adding to their loser, and it just keeps getting ramped up. Buyers just keep stepping in, and then you're constantly having to cover. And so the only people who are selling really, right, are just short sellers. And so what you really want to see is when you start seeing, like, let's say, for example, in like an engulfing candle, which is a candle that sort of takes over and is much bigger than the previous candles, you really want to see where are they selling? Where are the sellers coming in? Where are the market makers selling? And so if you were to have shortened pre-market, which again clearly had some resistance, you could tell that there was a breakout, and then here was the gap fill. Okay, so for Apple, simply it was a simple short. Didn't play this too much today, but there was obviously plenty of opportunities, especially here when we had this massive gap fill. And that was one of the plays I looked for in my trading today. And then with Tesla, we mentioned in our video how it's gotten kind of boring and it's really just traded sideways. And this is my daily chart for pretty much the last 2 weeks. And then out of nowhere, again, same thing, low volume, so if you're a pre-market trader and you're going full size, this is how you can get burned, because you had this sort of gap up, right? So we closed over here around 845, we gapped up to 856. if you thought right at open we would maybe fill in that gap, look what happens. We essentially ramp up close to $900, which we finally hit today after anticipating after a couple weeks. So that was awesome. And of course, again, when did the fill come in? It came in 30 minutes after the trading started. So a lot of times if you're expecting that gap fill at the open and not a gap and go, again, recognize that there's a lot of plays and a lot of sort of maneuverability you need to do in the market when you start to notice that the trend is sort of changing with how the trading is happening. So again, like Apple, like every stock, we had this flash crash, and then of course we had this rebound, and we didn't necessarily retest 900, but again, I expect us to trade sideways and get right back up there now that we've sort of identified that level. And so that was my trade here. Was same sort of play. Is I had some shorts and some small scalp longs. Didn't play Tesla a whole lot today. There's just so many tickers. We're only going to cover 4 today in the daily recap because it was from our Sunday. But I was trading things like CBAT. I was trading like SPRQ. There's just a ton of tickers out there that are just exploding and going, just going crazy. My favorite stock by far, biggest winner, is Palantir. Just great gap up from Friday's strong momentum. We mentioned just a $25 to $32 move. We thought you'd get some type of retracement. I was actually looking for a dip buy. And so for this one, my peak interest was really looking for that gap fill. And so when it did come, and again, we had that, like every other stock, we had that. I was actually looking at the 3280 area. And it was funny because you can see this light green area. If you look at last night's video, we identified that as a strong support. And you can see that when we had that sort of flash crash, that it actually bounced right off of that support. And the reason why it's a thin green line is because I said it's a soft support. It's not as strong as a stronger dip buy, which I would say is 27.59. So of course, if you're taking a long, you can always take a dab at 29.50. So what was amazing was Palantir, again, just up 11% for the day. Again, just ramped up. I mean, this is volume. I mean, if you look at the volume that came in Friday, look at this first bar, look at the massive amount of volume that pushed this thing up. Because if you think about it, and if you follow the stock, when a stock is going from essentially 33 and all the way up to 39, and it has, a massive amount of, average range, when you notice that here, it's usually only trading within a $2 range, and all of a sudden you have this sort of, flux of like, was it $10? So there is definitely a lot of volume that kind of came in. And then again, what I was looking for was the 3280 for the fill. And we ended up getting all the way back to 29.50, which was awesome. It happened really quick. So hopefully some of you guys were able to dip buy. And then we just retraced right back to where we were. Okay. So, I mean, that was the awesome thing, was just a great dip buy opportunity. And then of course we sold off, and we really validated this level right here. So that $32 level was very validated many times, and that's where the buyer stepped in. You can see the wicks of these candles are extremely long, and so we bought into that, and then we sort of held this level of around 35, 36. So, again, if you're dip buying tomorrow, you can, anything between 32 and 33. We have tomorrow's the big day for demo day, so look forward to seeing what brings with that. Some exciting news. And again, if your bag potentially holding, because you bought up here, don't worry, it's going to be back up there in no time. And we also have earnings coming up in a couple weeks. Okay. And then sort of the last stock that we want to cover for the daily recap for today is going to be GameStop. And again, GameStop, we knew that this thing's just been totally manipulated and short squeezed, and it was a great play if you got in the long. I know some people who've been long since the mid 30s. I've been selling puts, same thing, out of the money. So I'm selling $40 puts for Friday expiration, and those have just been cash money. So again, when I saw this massive gap up, I was actually awake at pretty early, and I saw this pre-market run, and it was actually around 70 when it came out around 1 o'clock Pacific time. And all of a sudden, I remember going back to bed, getting some rest before the pre-market at 4, and it went all the way up to like, it was 136. All right, so this thing was just getting ramped up by the algos, and then you can see it got ramped up again. And believe it or not, we talk about like the YOLO, the Reddit groups, and I'm all about, breaking sort of the stigma, associated with the Wall Street and sort of the market makers. And I'm all about that. And believe me, I'll jump that bandwagon any day. But at the same time is how much of this is YOLO and gambling, and it's great that people are making money. It's great that people are making millions of dollars off of GameStop. but there's also people who are losing millions of dollars, right? There's people that I essentially know about that were buying at 150, 155, and is GameStop really going to go back up there anytime soon? Yes, it's holding these certain levels, but you can also see, look at how long this wick is. Look how much rejection of this price was. I mean, how much of this was really just, again, a squeeze and just people getting squeezed out of their short positions. And so if you're bag holding at 150, a stock that was really like 20 bucks 2 weeks ago, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to be a while. And so again, I just get worried about, I'm more of a long-term trader. I'm try to be more of a consistent trader. This is an awesome move. If you're, again, 30, 40, 50 bucks, if you're buying GameStop and you have this $100 move, that's awesome, right? But is it something that, if you're just sort of throwing the dice and hoping that you get this play every time on a different stock symbol, like, BlackBerry and all these other symbols, is that sustainable? And so I just worry about those folks, because again, we want everybody to be successful and we want everybody to be a long-term trader. And it's like, as much money as you can make, you can also lose that money. Okay, so you can see that, from coming up here, we gapped actually lower than where we were trading, and then we weren't able to even come back or even retrace that move. So again, purely a squeeze, just people losing a ton of money. And like I said, I actually know people who are bag holding in the 150s, and I really don't know what to tell them. So with that said, guys, what I look for tomorrow for GameStop are the key levels. So again, the support level here around 65. Selling puts, again, out of the money for Friday expiration in the 40s. No, it's not really worried about it. And like I said, just be a little careful on short selling right now. The market is really sort of blowing up shorts. And so you really want to just adapt to the trend, and the trend will always be your friend. All right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.